Earthlings of the world, welcome to a spontaneous, impromptu Still Alive. So only decided to do this yesterday, didn't we, Ronnie? So
yes, we did. It's all a bit of a kind of well, not a last minute thing, but quite a kind of. There wasn't a lot of notice for people, so it's good that we've got some people already in the chat. It's good that some people heard about it and have come along, and of course it will be shared. So hello as well to everyone who's watching the recording.
Yeah, so we should call this Still Alive, I think, for this week, for this one.
Yes.
So while people are coming in, what we're going to do is, because we all like another countdown, don't we, Ryan? We'll do the countdown and then the intro. So here we go. Still Alive is live. So as you can see on your screen, we're going to be talking about Alex O'Connor, since everybody else seems to be morally obliged to do so. But let's just say hello to a few people first. Jeremy the Ape was first in. Well, actually, Kevin was first in, but I'm not quite sure if anybody else can see his comment because it was several hours ago. Canadian Vegan Forever, hello, Colleen. Vein ammonian, is that right? I just heard Danny pronounce that, and he did it really well, and I did it really badly.
I think it's is that Finnish? I think it looks like Finnish to me, or
it's only half done, so it's not finished.
Baltic language.
So there's Justine, Stupid Vegan World, Jameson, the Vegan Potterhead, and BC so far. So welcome along. And so we're going to talk about this chap you can see on your screen. Now, the interesting thing about this, I said because I was going to do this on my own, and then I said, well, should we do it as Still Alive? And Ronnie goes, yeah. And so I've put together a bit of an intro, because Ronnie doesn't know anything about Alex O'Connor, really.
No, he's cosmic septic, isn't he?
Oh. Yeah, he is now.
He's now.
Yeah.
No, I don't tend to watch any of these YouTubers, to be quite honest.
No, apart from yourself.
Well, don't even watch me sometimes. No, because I just think, well, I'm vegan already, so why do I need to watch them? So I kind of don't.
Oh, look at that! You're not alone. I don't know who this person is.
No, I kind of vaguely had heard about Cosmic Skeptic, isn't it? Vaguely heard the name. Of course, you
well, I'll tell you what, Amber. If you
out, wasn't he? I don't think he's going to be speaking at Camp Out now, is he?
You're going to get a lot of swear words if you ask the vegan community at the moment. So yes, I'm going to do a little intro to what the issue is, because I'm not particularly bothered that we've got another ex-vegan on our hands, particularly, and a vegan influencer to boot. My real question, because I'm always interested in movement issues, is why did this person become a vegan influencer in the first place? And so that's what I want to look at first. Because if you look at the internet, it looks like the vegans who feel sorry for Alex O'Connor at the moment are about as rare as hen's teeth, as they say. Now, I feel a bit sorry for this guy, just a bit, and I'll explain that. But really, my position is based on the fact that I think the O'Connor controversy illustrates what a complete mess the vegan movement is in at the moment. I mean, going back to Alex, I mean, the poor lad's only been vegan for about 3 years. And I say vegan but he never wanted to be vegan, and he never actually managed to be one. And that is exactly the same as his philosophical mentor, Peter Singer. He never wanted to be an animal advocate, and he never made it to be vegan, described himself as a flexible vegan. But going back, well, to both of them, I suppose, ironically, they're probably, in terms of the philosophical strands of the movement, they've probably got a greater kind of grasp of it than most. But Alex O'Connor rejects animal rights. He also rejects animal liberation, apart from Peter Singer's welfareist flexitarian version of animal welfare. He talks about factory farming, he talks about cruelty, he talks about reducing animal suffering in particular. Now, this is interesting because I think that he thought, in general terms, when he came into the movement and looked around, he thought that he was completely in step with everybody else in the animal rights movement. Even though it was called the animal rights movement, he recognized that the movement just uses that phrase rhetorically. There's no philosophical depth to it whatsoever. So he felt pretty okay about that. Moreover, more than anybody else, he's run amok with the weak definition of veganism that we've been burdened with since 1979. You know, the one about practicable and possible. He loves those words. There's virtually no talk that he does where he doesn't talk about how veganism is about being practicable and possible. He's made quite a bit of hay with those words. Now, I've seen a few of the reactions already to Alex O'Connor's second statement, the IBS one, we should call it. I think it's going to be referred to as his BS statement in weeks to come, rather than his IBS statement. I've even watched a couple of those streams in which people have to pay to be able to talk to other vegans. Now, for me, that's another movement issue for me. You know, what a right-wing capitalistic shit show this movement is becoming when you've got to pay to talk to another vegan. I mean, really? I mean, we're supposed to be a social movement here. Anyway, back to Mr. O'Connor. I deliberately used this picture of for our advert for this particular.
As long as people don't think it's me holding the book rather than him.
Well, I can make that clear by doing that. Yeah, so that's his hand and not yours.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you can see his other hand just behind me
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Well, I got a copy. I'm holding the book.
Yeah.
So he's holding a copy of Animal Liberation by Peter Singer. And so what's wrong with that? Most people in the movement would probably ask. Now, this is the book that Peter, in their North American site, their main site, they say this about that book. They say it's referred to as the Animal Rights Bible. Now, I think they could have got that from Animal Aid, in the sense that Animal Aid was formed 3 years before Peter, and Gene Pink called Animal Liberation the Bible of the New Animal Rights Movement in one version that they put out themselves. But then Peter go on to say, this book includes in-depth examinations of the use of animals for food, experiments, and puts forward a revolutionary animal rights philosophy. That's my emphasis. If you read only one animal rights book, it has to be this one. And so that's my emphasis as well. So this is still up. This is the only philosophy book that Peter sell. It's probably the only one that they've sold consistently over the years. So this then is Alex O'Connor's go-to animal rights book. So again, what's the problem? Well, some of the problem is here.
Starting with animal rights. A lot in your work, a lot of your positions about animal rights stems from a notion of equality. So why is equality so important when viewing both humanity and other animals in the animal kingdom.
Okay, before I answer the question, though, I want to make just one little pedantic point.
Absolutely.
Some of you just heard me say that if we take a rights approach to human rights, it becomes difficult to decide what set of human rights we have. Julie, you talked about animal rights there, and of course the same would apply to that. Do animals have rights? What rights do they have? Although people very frequently describe me as an animal rights advocate, as you just did, and that's fine from the point of view of taking a political stance. People will know what side I'm on, where I am. Philosophically, I'm not an animal rights advocate because I don't think that rights is the appropriate terminology to think about the issue.
Okay, so what we have there then is the person who is often described as the father of the animal rights movement, Peter Singer, saying that he doesn't believe that other animals have rights. Now, Alex O'Connor will agree completely with what Singer had to say in that clip. And in fact, he said the same things exactly himself. They would both say, for example, that other animals and humans don't have rights, that moral rights in particular, they probably agree with this idea that it's nonsense on stilts. Now, O'Connor in the last few months has been saying that other animals don't have the right to life, and he's got a variety of reasons for that. So Singer is O'Connor's go-to philosopher. And Singer says that other animals are replaceable. If we kill them painlessly, then there's nothing morally amiss going on. So my first question is Alex O'Connor, or was he out of step with the rest of the movement? Because interestingly, he thought that he wasn't.
Yeah, I've read Tom Reagan. I mean, one of the most interesting things about the animal rights movement is that most people who claim to be animal rights activists are not, because they don't believe in animal rights, because they're doing this for utilitarian grounds. They've read Peter Singer. They think it's about, minimizing suffering. That's not what rights are. Like to have a right to something means you have an inviolable, impenetrable claim.
Right, before we go on, let's welcome Andy. So can you hear us, Andy?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me okay?
Splendid. And Andy has joined us to provide a generational overview, or a younger overview to this than we're going to provide. So
I'm just younger than me, Roger, you mean?
Yeah, a bit younger than you, yeah. A bit younger than me too. So Andy,
but whilst I'm hearing you both, I'm still in awe of the pair of you. So age is not a thing. No, as far as I'm concerned, you two guys are. If we want to talk about like role models in terms of activism and people that we should be looking up to, it's not Alex O'Connor, is it? It's people like you two.
Oh no! Don't get too fan based with us. We'll let you down. Don't worry.
I don't think so. I mean, I think that's the key difference here. That it's always been about the animals, or always been about the others, as opposed to how best does this serve yourselves. And I think that's a problem we have now within the movement.
Yeah, it could be. What I'm doing at the moment, Andy, I'm just going through a little intro. So I'm about halfway through. So I'll just carry on. What Alex there said, that he'd read Tom Reagan, the author in 1983 of The Case for Animal Rights, the groundbreaking rights-based fundamental text of the movement, really. But as a philosophy graduate, he rejects animal rights. So let's turn to veganism, the thing that's got Alex into trouble. Now, Alex O'Connor has always openly and repeatedly, publicly, been a reducitarian vegan. But again, have no fear here. He's not alone. He's talked almost exclusively about factory farming rather than animal farms. I've never heard him talk, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody in the chat, I've never heard him talk about vivisection or fur or blood sports, those kind of issues. He's also said, and even to the anger of some other vegans, that he insists on weakening the already weak vegan definition even further. to suggest that veganism is really about reducing animal suffering. So my movement question is this. How can this guy, who admits that he's not really vegan in terms of vegan philosophy, who rejects animal rights, how come this guy was invited to all those animal rights and vegan conferences and camps? And I just wonder whether there's a very dark and uncomfortable truth here, because the answer might well be he was invited to such events because there is no animal rights movement. He was also invited to such events because a hell of a lot of vegans, including vegan activists and including vegan influencers, have also spent the last number of years slimming down the meaning of veganism, systematically weakening the definition of veganism, which is weak enough already compared with some earlier ones. They would take out words like philosophy from the definition. They would take out words like exploitation from the definition and leave animal cruelty only. Or if they did use the two, they'd flip them around to make cruelty the first and therefore alter the priorities. So really, in recent years, we have reduced the radical, rational philosophy of veganism to something like the RSPCA. And what have most of us done about it? Well, I think most of us have sat down and watched it happen. And what have most of us said about it? I think most of us said virtually nothing. And finally, final thought for me before our guest and Ronnie have their say, is I think there's a good chance here, I think, that he's realized that the movement that he's joined is not very sophisticated. That's what I think has gone on there.
A lot of vegans, quite understandably, just are very kind of annoyed at the state of animal agriculture and just want a place to basically vent, post memes, and just be totally rude to people who eat meat, this kind of stuff, whatever. So they've got the subreddit, and it's quite funny. If you're a vegan, it's quite a funny place to go because they're just like totally unapologetic memes and material. Mm-hmm. And so I did this video on my channel a while ago talking about the right to life for animals. It was a Q&A again. Somebody asked, what's an argument for the right to life for animals? And I said in the Q&A, well, I'm not sure non-human animals have a right to life in the way that humans do. Of course, I don't think anybody has rights. I don't think rights exist. So trivially, I don't think animals have any rights. But I thought, well, if human beings have the right to life in some conceptual sense, like a metaphorical truth, I've made a video about my understanding of rights before. I thought, well, that understanding of rights that I would have, I don't think can apply to animals. Still not sure what I think about that, but I thought, hey, let me put it out there. It's just a casual Q&A. No one's going to mind. So I put it out and said, I'm not sure that animals do have a right to life. And if you want to know why, you can go and watch on my YouTube channel.
Hit the link.
It's quite a fairly straightforward argument, I think. And then I didn't notice this until ages later because I never really go on Reddit, but I realized there's like an inbox and people can message you. And I looked at it and I had a message from the moderators of Vegan Circle Jerk. And they banned me. They banned me from Vegan Circle Jerk and sent me a message saying, actually, vegans do think that animals have a right to life, and we don't need a 20-minute video full of sophisms to explain why they're wrong. And I thought,
wow,
okay. So I was like, oh, hello. So I messaged back. I was like, oh, like, and so I said, like, oh, so do you, like, what definition of veganism are you using, Mr. Moderator? And do you ever, like, buy products that harm animals in this way, that kill animals? Because, how are you understanding right to life there? And then he responded by permanently banning me. And I thought to myself, fair play, because like what I was just saying Vegan Circle Jerk is good for, I became a victim of. It's good because they're just basically unrelenting. It's like, we think this about animal exploitation, and if you don't like it, you can sod off.
Yeah.
And so they did that to me. But to me, that appears dogmatic.
It does, yeah.
It's like you've got a line, which is animals have a right to life. And that's it, right? Mm-hmm. And like, even if
it's non-negotiable.
Okay, so that's Alex's position, and I think we might have confused him a little bit because he started getting criticised for things that he didn't realize the movement was all about, I think, in some ways. So anybody want to say something based on that?
Well, I mean, I think you brought up a key point sort of at the end of your segment about like nobody really said anything. I think that's really key, that a number of times, I mean, personally, without sort of trying to make excuses for myself, I never really watched his content to notice those kind of things until sort of more recently. It was never someone I was particularly interested in. But if you're going to admit time and time again, like he's just said himself, he made a 7-minute video essentially dismissing the rights of animals. Why wasn't that more publicized? Why wasn't there 10 reaction videos about this? No, why wasn't everyone saying, hang on a minute, this is a problem now? Why have they waited for him to make a statement saying I'm no longer vegan or whatever before they?
Yeah, well, I mean that's a good point. I mean they waited for him to talk about food before it became an issue. But yeah. I mean when it was talking about philosophy and fundamental position, they didn't notice. But I mean, surely the people who invited him to all these conferences and camps, they must have known what he stood for. He didn't hide it. It was a public thing. He was never vegan.
Yeah. I think that though goes to further highlight the issues within the movement. Were people overlooking what he was saying because of the, I don't know, greater good, or did they just not notice because they don't realize any different? Because they still think this is kind of a welfarist position where it is about reducing, and so they agreed with what he was saying for the most part. Because there's got to be something. If no one saw a problem with it when he was making these videos and saying these things, why is it all of a sudden a problem now?
Yeah, well, I think there's something in that. I tend to think that what we might have, part of the solution here, or the analysis, if you like, is the fact that it's kind of style over substance. I think people like the fact that it was articulate. He's a young guy, very pleasant in terms of his personality and all that. And so I think that because he was articulate and he had a big following and he seemed to, know his stuff, as it were, that people didn't listen to what he actually said, I think. And of course, from a social movement point of view, that's weird. Or maybe it's not, because has anybody ever listened to what Peter Singer has said, or Melanie Joy or Tobias Leonhardt? I mean, do we listen to each other to kind of see the reflection of the values behind what we say? Or is it the fact that we've just got this messy movement now? And I think O'Connor just highlights the fact that we have. What do you think, Ronnie?
And you could take the example he used with the Reddit thread and getting banned. I've brought this subject up with other so-called big name activists talking about their use of the word cruelty, say, and I've been blocked for doing that. So it works both ways. And I think, I mean, it's not just about Alex, is it? You can go back through lots and lots of these people and look at some of the things that they're saying. And I don't see vegans in the comments saying, hang on a minute, this isn't what we stand for. I see vegans in the comments clapping and supporting them with their money. So it's kind of no wonder that nobody saw the wrong in it, because people don't realize it's wrong.
I think there's so much emphasis on the food now, and I think that's the problem. And that goes back to the point that people became upset when he changed his diet. They were never upset about his actual rejection of vegan philosophy, were they? And this is because there's just so much focus on food rather than on the ethics.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd say it probably wasn't a rejection of vegan philosophy. He just never got there in the first place.
Yeah, he didn't. He failed to kind of appreciate what vegan philosophy really is.
Yeah, but also, I mean, he kind of used the movement a little bit like a seminar in a sense. But this is not a bad thing. This is a good thing. He was like thinking out loud. I mean, the guy is vegan 3.5 years, and his position, because he's interested in philosophy, he's not interested in dogma. And in fact, he talked about that right at the end of that last clip, that it's not a question of I've got a dogmatic position that is what I'm going to stick to regardless of all the new information that I get. And so the issue for him that caused him a lot of trouble with regard to right to life was the issue that has come very prominent in the movement, which is crop deaths. He came to realize that other animals can't have the right to life because of crop deaths. And he would argue then that if they do have the right to life, which is inviolable, then that would mean that we as vegans would have to starve ourselves, recognizing their right to life. The thing that was wrong about that argument is the fact that it misses out that rights often clash.
Well, the thing is, we say humans have a right to life. Well, therefore, let's kind of ban all motor vehicles because people get killed on the roads, don't they? And it's pretty inevitable that if you have motorized transport, there are going to be people killed. Well, indeed, the biggest victims on the roads are other animals rather than humans, aren't they? But just kind of talking about humans. So are you saying that because we allow motorized transport, therefore humans have no rights because humans, do.
Well, you could argue that the people who are walking along the streets are volunteers, whereas the other animals in the fields are not. It's just that, I mean, the fundamental position about crop deaths, of course, and this is the favorite thing at the moment on TikTok, is the fact that at least those other animals are free living until they get killed. They're not getting killed by vegans. They're getting killed by farmers who mock vegans by saying, you're paying me to kill the other animals and you don't want them to be killed. Well, we don't want them to be killed. And so the only way to get those animals not killed is to have more vegans. So we've got to do it this way round. See, some of them say what you should do is become a Jain or just grow all your own food and this kind of stuff. Essentially, what they want to do is make veganism totally impractical and not workable really in the modern world. And they'll be the first ones then. If everybody goes, okay, we're just going to have a veganic allotment, then they're going to go, oh, look how limited these vegans' food choices are, because they can only, So we've got to do it this way round. We've got to expound the philosophy of veganism. And once we've got enough socio-political power, then we can do something about the crop deaths. We can't do it the other way around. It won't work.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think it goes back to the fact that veganism is, like the founders of veganism talked about veganism being in opposition to the exploitation of other animals. And so that implies a degree of activism and a degree of educating other people. And if you really limit yourself by kind of just, having your own little small holding, and that's what you concentrate on, and you don't kind of go out into the world, then you're not really living according to vegan principles by doing that either. So it's all about sort of doing your best to oppose the exploitation and oppression of other animals. And we don't live in a perfect world because, like, of course, we're surrounded by all these other people that are continuing to oppress and exploit them.
Well, in fact, I mean, Alex O'Connor would have said that himself. This is interesting from Jonah Whale. I don't see what Alex has done as being any different from the raw food bikini babe social influencers who picked up veganism to bolster a following, ditched it later, then gone on to life coaching stuff. I think it was more philosophical than that. I think that see, he was a little bit, ironically, Ronnie, he was a little bit like you, and you were a little bit like him and Peter Singer in the sense that when you first encountered animal ethics, you wanted to debunk it, right? And so did Peter Singer, and so did Alex O'Connor, and none of the three of you could do it. And so he was like a reluctant vegan right from the start, and then he comes up with this kind of medical reason and everything. But I think in terms of the movement, what happened was that he came into the movement thinking it was full of utilitarians like himself, and Gary Francione would say, well, it is, right? But then he starts getting some people complaining from an animal rights point of view, and that took him by surprise, I think. But there wasn't much until, as you said, Ronnie, until the food issue, and then everybody in the movement had their knickers in a twist, because you've suddenly got somebody yet again who goes back to eating other animals, but never really represented them in an animal rights way or a vegan way in the first place. Right. I'm just looking through what we've got here. I think Jeremy is saying, yes. You see, I think Jeremy's got it here.
Yep.
That
I think it's the last comment that you put up as well, was bang on as well. I.e., there's no one on the same level or with the same platform that's animal rights based that you can make the comparison to. So if you're looking at it sort of sat on the fence that's just coming new into this, and you're looking at it thinking you've got this guy versus this guy, there isn't that. You've got this person that's talking very similar to this person, talking very similar to this person. The kind of people that are offering an opposition view, so to speak. There, you have to go look for them. I mean, look at how many people, just for example, we've talked about in our lives that had never heard of Gary Francione before. But they know who Ed is. They know who Alex O'Connor is. They know who Joey is. That's all they know. They don't realise there even is like an abolition part of this because no one's ever told them.
Well, the irony about Francione is he's left the movement, although the movement doesn't know he's left the movement, because you've got people who will share a Mercy for Animals thing, and then 2 hours later they'll share a Francione thing, and then they'll share a PETA thing.
Yeah.
And, Francione is kind of sandwiched between these welfarists.
Yeah.
But the people who posted them don't know that Francione would be upset by that.
Absolutely.
And if they did know that, they wouldn't know the reason. And again, I think it's because philosophically, we've never really become a very sophisticated movement. And I think that is because of the way that Tom Reagan was squashed down in the 1980s and in the 1990s. And I think the way that the movement treated Tom Reagan, and therefore what I mean is the welfare movement treated animal rights, was a scandal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Essentially, the animal rights people, through Reagan and Francione at the time, and Joan Donaire, got squashed out of it. And so you're right, Andy. That means that when you've got people like Aspie coming in and Joey and Earthling Ed, they're coming into an animal welfare movement and they're being socialized by an animal welfare movement. But going back to what you said about Jeremy's comment about non-rhetorical, it's interesting that I think that Joey has started to change his talk now.
Yes.
And I think he's had to overcome, first of all, society's animal welfare ideology, and then he's had to overcome the movement's animal welfare socialization. And so this is why what has he been vegan now 7-8 years? It's taken him that long to see through what the movement's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's only a very, very recent change, isn't it? I mean, he's a perfect example of this, and sort of looking forward, he may well be one of these very few in the future that is kind of a big name rights-based activist, because there isn't really anyone else, not with the platforms that we're talking about. Where are they getting their information from? They are getting it for the most part from welfarists, aren't they? Or people that don't even realize that that's their position. They just think that that's what veganism is. I think that's the key part of it. I don't think these people are doing this intentionally for any reason. It's just the fact that they don't know any different. Like I, once upon a time, didn't know any different.
Well, it's a little bit like specialist socialization. If you come into the animal welfare movement, which calls itself the animal rights movement, you get socialized into that. And the first thing you get told to do is talk about cruelty.
Yeah.
Right. And then what you got with someone like Alex O'Connor really latched on to the actual meaning of, see, a lot of activists were busy slimming down and shortening the definition. They didn't like the fact that it mentioned the humans. They didn't like the fact that it had the word philosophy in there. They wanted it much more. So there are some which just goes, veganism is a lifestyle essentially against cruelty to animals. I mean, that's some of the definitions that people use. I think what O'Connor did was look at the definition and really ran with this idea of practicable and possible. And here's a question for Ronnie, because we tried to get a comment for somebody who's working for the Vegan Society during the time that 1979 thing came in. So they started working on it in 1979, they finished it in 1988. I don't think that they thought that term practicable and possible would be used like it is now in the 21st century, Ronnie, because people are almost like saying, well, that means I can do anything. if it's not practicable, right?
Well, it's practicable, I think, which is a little bit different than practical, isn't it? And I think it's probably more demanding. I mean, there obviously needs to be something along those lines, because, you know, we don't live in a perfect world, and we can only, you know, do our best in an imperfect world to live as, you know, in a way that where we avoid contributing as much as possible to the oppression of other animals, or indeed all oppression. And because we don't live in a perfect world, then we're you know, we're not going to be able to do that kind of perfectly. So there has to be something like that in the definition. But whether those are the right words to define it, I'm kind of not sure. I think that's what they were trying to do.
Yeah, well, you've got to remember that the definition that everybody knows, and I sometimes get into trouble for calling it this, but like the official definition that people regard as being the official one, that came about when the Vegan Society was professionalizing and started to get articles and memorandums and this kind of stuff. And so it's quite moderate compared with some of the others. I mean, I always go back to 1945 and something that Donald Watson said, which is just one line. And I think that one line is better than that full definition, because he said veganism is about the opposition to the exploitation of sentient life.
That's pretty much what I always tell people the definition is. It's just much easier. I think the more caveats that you add into it, the more people see, well, oh, yeah, you can do this, I can do that, I can do this. I think if you grasp what it actually means, you're automatically also going to understand that there are certain things that are unavoidable. You shouldn't need that sort of like pointing out in the way that it is. I don't think. I mean, I understand why it's there, but I think it does give people that get out clause all the time because they misunderstand. I mean, most people don't know the definition of practicable. For instance, they don't. And a lot of people, when they even read the definition out, I've even watched videos where people have the Vegan Society definition on the page,
and they say practical,
read the word, and they still read it as practical. Yes,
that's right. Yeah. There is that. Okay, well, look, this one's going to be a bit of a short one. I've said everything that I want to say, I think, and we've got a TikTok session to prepare for on the hour. And so, unless you want to say anything else, people, we shall go. But is there any last closing thoughts from either of you?
Yeah, one thing I'd say is, you know, vegans are spending a lot of time discussing this about Alex O'Connor. And I think we've got to kind of consider what's the best use of our time, what we need to do. We need to educate as many people as possible to go vegan. Otherwise, we're not going to achieve animal liberation. And I think I'm wondering if a lot of people spend a lot of time kind of even watching these videos instead of actually being active, instead of actually getting out there and spreading the vegan message. And that's what concerns me. Is everyone just spending time watching everyone else's videos? You know, and I think there is, there is kind of, degree of truth in that that's what a lot of people are doing, when really we kind of need to be, we need to be getting out there. We need to be thinking of how can we get the message out to other people instead of just constantly talking amongst ourselves as vegans. And whether we do that on the street, or whether we do that in a way where we're kind of using social media in a way that will definitely reach other vegans. I know that's something that you're very much looking into at the moment.
Yeah, but look at this, Ronnie. Michael is saying, I agree, Ronnie, but Alex O'Connor needed to be called out for his rubbish. My question is why he ended up being an influencer in the first place, really, more than the fact that once he kind of fell off the bandwagon, as it were, he needed to be called out. I don't think he should have got there.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, the point that was made earlier in one of the comments, i.e. it's no different than one of these sort of influencers that just jump on a plant-based diet. That is actually what everyone is reacting to. They're not reacting to Alex no longer being a vegan, because you could potentially argue that he never quite got there to begin with. They're arguing about him no longer being plant-based. That's what's upsetting them. And it's kind of like irrelevant. I get it, but it's not the same betrayal as what people seem to portray it as. Because I don't think he fully understood.
Now, somebody agreed with you for once there.
Yeah. Hell, that's a first. But
it is,
yes,
it is,
I mean,
it is
you
a
know, I'd
waste
say
of our
to
time, to be
everyone,
perfectly honest.
everyone
If there was
listening
a
to this,
huge non-vegan backlash where they were using him as this example, say, maybe address it. But I mean, pretty much everyone's made a reaction video now to his first and second videos. Like, do we need any more?
No, I think we've had enough, and including this one. But I just wanted to, when I saw the other reactions, I was thinking, where is the movement issue here? Where is the bigger picture here?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's a reason why Alex O'Connor became such an influence after 3 years of being. I mean, he was at Vegan Campout, one of the top headliners, I think, a couple of years ago now. So I mean, he'd have been 18 months as a vegan at that stage.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying that, you know, the length of time means anything. I'm just saying that were we really just not listening, and we just wanted another figurehead or something?
I think so.
I mean,
I
I'd say
think
to
social
people,
media clout speaks more than your understanding these days, doesn't it?
Yeah, this is interesting. Jeremy, you're going to have to contact the Vegan Society again.
yes, yeah. But I'd say to people, the thing is, you know, maybe, you know, less time watching videos and not this one. I mean, we watch our shows. I mean, our shows are all are kind of all contain an element of, you know, encouraging people
You
to
can watch them on the phone while you're door dropping.
Sorry.
You can watch them on the phone while you're door dropping.
That's right, yeah, and get run over crossing the road. I already fall over sometimes when I'm door dropping, so I don't want another distraction.
Oh right, okay.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm saying, are we spending too much time kind of looking at these things? You know, watching listening to what other people say instead of like taking the initiative ourselves and kind of getting out there and spreading the message. I do think there's an element of that.
Well, I think that's another big nail.
That's another big thing, because it don't matter how many influencers you listen to and you watch. It doesn't change
people have
anything.
a craving for leaders at the moment, don't they?
Well, yes. I mean, we've covered this many a time that people are waiting to be told what to do by someone else or by some big organization. Where it's kind of you know, it's kind of easy to kind of become active yourself. You know, there's other vegans pretty much everywhere. You know, get together with your local vegans and, you know, get out and do a bit of outreach, whether it's, you know, doing a information table or, you know, delivering leaflets, distributing leaflets, stuff like that. Everyone can do that. And that's what we need to do, rather than constantly just be watching, you know, videos all the time. No. And
your fan club's getting bigger.
Yeah, but and the thing is, I mean, like I said, you know, I know we're here and people are watching our video, and I'm pleased they are. But what we say is every single episode of what we do is kind of is aimed at, you know, encouraging people to become more active. I mean, our next show coming up on well,
Tuesday.
UK and Ireland time at 7 p.m. on Tuesday. It's going to be different.
Tuesday, yeah.
People in other parts of the world, you know, that's going through ideas for activism. We're discussing, you know, ideas for activism that come from the what was it, Animal Justice Academy. Going through those, discussing them, seeing how they can improve on, and that's something, you know, people can learn from in terms of activism. So yeah, and I think stuff like that's okay. That, you know, stuff that encourages and helps people to become active. But at the end of the day, that's the important thing. You know, all vegans need to be getting out there, spreading the message, because in fact, that's, you know, that's part of what being a vegan is. You know, it's not a passive non, you know, passive avoidance of stuff. It actually includes an active element.
Right. Well, I'm gonna run through what's coming up in the next week in a second. But Andy, do you want to say a last thing?
I mean, again, just to join the Ronnie fan club, I totally agree with you. When I listen to, like, whether it's your time tunnel or whether it's like your two show like this one, I always learn something. I always come away from that with some information or whatever. Whereas I think a lot of the videos now that are made by activists, they're kind of appeasing audiences, aren't they? And the vast majority of people that are watching them are not non-vegans that are being influenced. They're vegans that are watching it, giving it a like and thinking that's activism.
Yeah, well, obviously we're into vegan bubbles in that sense. And in relation to what's coming up in quarter of an hour, we've got a team of people on TikTok. So it's that vegan show, I think the title, isn't it? Or is it going to be under your title? Yeah. So we're going to try and get out of the vegan bubble. That's in quarter of an hour's time. And on Monday, there's the Animal Rights Show with Professor Mark Beckhoff. Tuesday, we've got Still Alive, if we are, with with Ronnie and myself. And we're going through that final run of 50 things to do.
It's the second to last one, isn't it?
Oh, is it? Oh,
yeah, we're doing
right.
31 to 40, aren't we?
All right. Well, that goes to show I can't count then, doesn't it? and then on Thursday there's another time tunnel, but I don't know what it's about yet. But so I can't tell you that detail. But there will be one. So okay, people, thanks for tuning in. And so Ronnie, we shall be back if
we are still alive.